We'll try one more time, and if not, we'll stop the live stream. So I've got Councillor Murphy, proposed by Councillor Jamil and seconded by Councillor Kindersley, whose hand I saw first. Any other nominations? No other nominations. On that basis, Councillor Murphy is duly elected as chair.
Thank you very much. I speak into this microphone with a great deal of trepidation, I have to say. Thank you very much indeed. So I'd like to begin, if I may, by welcoming those members of the press and public who are watching live stream this meeting of the Fire Services YouTube page. The Fire Authority allows filming and photography at its public meetings, so please feel free to use social media during the meeting. Can I ask, though, that everyone present turns off their mobile phones to silent or vibrate whilst the meeting takes place? There's no fire alarm test scheduled for today, so if the alarm sounds, I will adjourn the meeting and we'll make our way out via the nearest available fire exits. The muster point, as you probably know, is in the car park to the rear of the building. So the next substantive item on the agenda is appointment of vice chair. Do I have any nominations for vice chair? I would like to make a nomination of Councillor Jamil. Do I have any further nominations? Yes, and a seconder, please.
Yes, I'd like to second that.
Thank you. Do I have any other further nominations? No. Thank you very much. Councillor Jamil is confirmed as vice chair for the municipal year 24-25. So now we come on to apologies for absence and declarations of interest. Tamar, can you please report any apologies for absence?
Apologies received from Councillor Bywater and Councillor Reynolds and from Councillor Dew as well.
Thank you. And I believe we're waiting for Councillor Ray. Thank you. Does any member wish to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory disclosable interest? And please, if any matters arise during the meeting, feel free to raise a matter then. So the next item is the chair's announcement. Our annual meeting today coincides with a very busy time for most of us before a significant event in a couple of weeks. So I've purposely kept my announcement short. Firstly, I would like to formally welcome Councillors Black and Boyce to the Fire Authority and thank very heartily Councillors Goodliffe and Warren for their incredible contributions to our work during their tenure. Secondly, while there is a formal decision item on the agenda today about the appointment of our new head of paid service, it is likely that this will be the last authority meeting attended by our Chief Fire Officer, Chris Strickland, before he retires. I would therefore like to put on record how enormously grateful we are for his service. Chris has been an exemplary public servant, always driving improvement and innovation, focusing on staff well-being and excellence, all the while modelling the right behaviours for our service. We have truly been the beneficiaries in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, and he has also truly made his mark here. Members, please note that we will have an opportunity to mark the occasion on the 25th of June. Thirdly, and on a very different note, I would like to say how much fun it's been to see so many throwback photos, interesting articles and competitions on our internal and external media channels celebrating our golden anniversary year. I must echo the Chief's recent comments that as chair of the authority, I'm sure I speak for all members. I'm also extremely proud to be here celebrating half a century of serving the communities of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. All our people join the service as they have a strong desire to help others, and collectively we are honoured to have been doing so for 50 years. I would also like to mention that Peterborough Volunteer Fire Brigade having been formed by a group of businessmen in 1884, is 140 this year. It remains the only volunteer fire service in the country and will be celebrating its unique history of service to the city and residents of Peterborough with an event this weekend and an open day in July. If anyone would like more information on the brigade or its celebrations, please contact Station Commander Anthony Gould. And finally, just a couple of diary dates. The 14th of July, there is a golden anniversary family barbecue in Hinchingbrook Cottage. It's a ticket-only event, so please let an officer know if you wish to attend. And on the 3rd of August, Ely Pride at Jubilee Gardens, Ely. The service intends to be there with an appliance and crew and welcome as many colleagues as possible from across the whole organisation to come along. Can I finally please remind members that we are in a pre-election period, so please keep any questions and comments strictly to matters on the agenda. Thank you. So we have received a public question, and I'd like, before we move on to other matters, could we please take the question? I'd like to invite Mr. Parsons, I believe, to present a public question to the committee. Mr. Parsons, when you've made yourself comfortable, you have 3 minutes, please, and then we'll respond.
Thank you and good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to present this question. My name is Peter Parsons. I'm a leaseholder of a development in Cambridge, Parkside Place, and I'm here representing a group of leaseholders, including my co-leaseholder here, Mr. Tony Hemming. I'm also speaking as a council taxpayer and resident of Cambridge City. I say the fire station in Cambridge is part of an estate developed at Parkside Place by Grosvenor Developments Limited. And it comprises the fire station, private apartments and affordable housing units. When planning consent was given for the development to Grosvenor, obviously there were a lot of complications over the original plans, but Grosvenor Developments entered into a Section 106 agreement with Cambridge City Council, Cambridge County Council and the Fire Authority. One of the conditions or a series of conditions in this Section 106 agreement related to affordable housing units. One of those conditions on affordable housing units that Grosvenor took on was an obligation that the service charges, future service charges for the affordable housing units would not increase over and above retail price index. The service charge, so that was an obligation that they took on. Now, when the development was finished and the leases were finalised, Grosvenor changed the terms of the original draft leases. And I wasn't sure what the original draft lease was with the Fire Authority, but the end result is that the Fire Authority became responsible for their share of the increase of any service charge over RPI for the affordable housing units. We as residential leaseholders also were left in that position. And just as an aside, I can tell you there are various legal claims being made against Grosvenor in relation to what they have done. But returning to what the position is for the Fire Authority, is to date, because the service charges on this development have increased very, very significantly, to date, the total amount in excess of RPI that for the affordable housing units is over £325,000, of which the Fire Authority have picked up a cost of over £50,000. So this obviously forms
Could you
part.
wind up your remarks, please?
Sorry,
Could you wind it up, please?
Yes. So £50,000 of costs have been charge to the Fire Authority, which obviously then as a precept charges them back under the council tax. This £50,000 we maintain is an obligation that Grosvenor originally set in their Section 106 agreement, but as I say, have managed to transfer that obligation to the Fire Authority and the other residential owners.
Thank you very much. Matthew, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, clearly it was a while ago now, and I think what I'd like to do, if you'll agree, is I'll take the information that the gentleman has raised this afternoon, and actually I'll take it away and talk to our legal advisors around it, and I'll actually come back with a full written response for you. And I'm happy to meet as well, and we can go through that. Clearly, from our perspective at the time, there was lots and lots of changes with the actual development itself. So I don't want to second guess, but we'll come back to you with a full written response.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You'll have a full written response within 10 working days. The matter requires a bit of research because it goes back.
No,
rather
I
a long
appreciate
time.
that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much
you.
for your question.
Thank you.
So we now come to the minutes of the Fire Authority meeting held on the 15th of February. Can I please ask if members are content that this is an accurate record? Agreed. Thank you very much. We'll take that as agreed and approve the minutes as reported. Thank you. Do any members have questions about the action log? Nope. Thank you very much. Those matters will be approved. Sorry.
Number 108.
Action 108, quite right.
Verbal, what's it?
Requires a verbal update.
I would be interested in that or a written one if that's preferred.
Thank you. Do we have an update? Is there any officer willing to do that, or is that a matter that we will respond in writing to members? Yes, that's right. It's rather important.
It was the lithium batteries.
Yes.
I will give a brief update around the impact of lithium-ion batteries on incidents in my report on the RMP performance measures. But also, if that doesn't cover it, please let me know and I'll provide you with an update.
Thank you very much. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. It was agreed that a letter from the Fire Authority would be helpful. Excuse me. Do we know if that has actually materialised? Did we produce one? Because if I do remember rightly, it was me that it was to do with the National Register, that there was no data on it. So I was just wondering, we agreed to produce a letter to say, you know, this is something that we need data on, the electric batteries, etc.
I do recall that, and if we aren't covering it in the matters today, then we will write afterwards to all members. Thank you. Thank you for raising that point. It's a really really important issue. So we come to the agenda item, which is the annual review of performance, integrated risk management plan. So can I ask John Anderson, please, to speak to that and also to mention the battery issue that you said you would.
Thank you, Chair. Afternoon, members. So this report is an update on the delivery against our integrated risk management plan 2020 to 2024. It particularly focuses on the last year of that plan up to the end of March of this year. So hopefully members will have had a good chance to have a look through the report. I'll just bring out a few highlights from the work we've been doing over the last year and the results of some of that work, and then I'll go on to talk about our actual performance data. And then happily to take any questions on either at the end or anything else. So in terms of our progress against our strategic intentions, a few of the highlights from this year, well, certainly over that reporting period, is in terms of our people excellence update, we had the third inspection from HMIC FRS, and we have found yet again to be good for promoting values and culture and promoting fairness and diversity, which I think is a real accolade to everyone who works within the service who contributed to that. We've also refreshed our service values and behaviours in that time. We did that in consultation with colleagues and giving due consideration to a national code of ethics. We've also introduced a psychological wellbeing practitioner, and that's enabled the provision of a low-level counselling within the service. And in community safety excellence, we've worked in partnership with East to produce 2 community welfare officers, primarily responsible for responding to falls in the community, but also while doing that activity, and when not required to take place in falls, they're going around doing community safety activity, supporting the most vulnerable people in our community. That has been entirely funded by East. In terms of operational excellence, we've done a lot of work around realigning and focusing on achieving the best outcome with the operational resources we have, and we've recently just started an initiative which is a trial for a year of standing up 2 extra on-call appliances every day over the weekends to provide a better response in rural areas across the county. And in terms of value for money, again, very pleasingly, HMIC FRS, in terms of use of resources, rated us as outstanding. I think that is a real accolade to the service and the way we use our resources and the money provided by taxpayers. And so going on then to our performance review. So I'll start off with attendance times, first pump within urban areas. The standard is 9 minutes, and the measure remains within the attendance times for most serious incidents. We ended the call year with an average of 7 minutes 48 for the first pump to most serious incidents. As you'll see, that's a pretty steady performance over the last 5 years, and we're maintaining a good performance against that measure. Attendance times in rural areas with the target of 12 minutes. That has improved. It's currently at 12 minutes and 4 seconds, only just slightly above the target, which is a really good improvement. And we've definitely seen that reduce over the last 5 years and is definitely heading towards the target period. That has been helped by the Cruiser Free initiative, except it has particularly benefited in rural areas. And just to give you a quick update on where we are with that. So on average, it's given us an extra 1,190 hours of cover a month, a 5.64 increase in the availability on average per month, and we've had 248 calls during this period where Cruiser Free were mobilised, an average of 21 per month. On 52% of the occasions, the Cruiser Free arrived first, providing a quicker response to the public of approximately 5 minutes 31 seconds of those incidents. That initiative has been going on for 18 months now, and it is well embedded. So in terms of attendance times, first pump to all incidents within 18 minutes on 95% of occasions. That is slightly above this measure at 95.6%, obviously only very slightly, and it's stayed pretty consistent just below or just above over the last 5 years. So we've been able to maintain that. the total fires, there's quite a significant reduction in total fires for this year. I think the main factor that is been the particularly poor weather, wet weather, which, as you know, the number of calls we receive each year is very much weather dependent, and that's had a big impact. But particularly when you compare it to the reporting year before, where there was significant spike due to the hot weather. So I think that answers most of that. In terms of primary fires, again, they're down. But that particularly against the year before, but that was very much with spate conditions, and actually they're reasonably consistent with what we see over the last 5 years if you take out the spate conditions. So secondary fires are very much down on the previous years and the last 5 years, but again that they are particularly affected by the weather conditions because of the nature of secondary fires. In terms of non-domestic fires, there was 11% decrease in these fires over a rolling 5-year period. So the direction of travel there is very positive. The number of business engagements has decreased slightly from the previous year, but that is because we've been focused on upskilling a lot of watch-based personnel, so we can have more people delivering inspections and visits to business premises. But that does have an increase in the number of our specialist fire safety officers having to do assurance work on those visits to make sure we maintain the standards with more people doing it. So our specialist officers are getting a bit more stretched in terms of what they're spending their time doing. Fire deaths. Now, this is a particularly sad story. We've had 10 fire deaths in this reporting year, and it's interesting. We've done a bit of a dive into the statistics and the trends, and over the last 5 years, it's fair to say that the majority of calls have been what we've been focusing on historically, and what the national data tells us, that it's particularly vulnerable elderly people and people living alone that are typically dying in fires. The last reporting year, that has changed, and we're seeing more wider age groups of people dying in fires, and the causes are a lot more around electricity and quite a bit around the lithium-ion batteries, which we discussed earlier. The problem is that the current reporting data system, RS, doesn't report that very well. It really needs updating, which is part of what that letter was about. What we need to, I think we need to make sure that does go. So that it's a bit hard to get the exact details with some of this data, but that's certainly what it's looking like, and it's a real change from the last 5 years. And I think that is something we really need to focus on, and we're starting to do some work with the district councils to run a media campaign around making sure people understand the risks, know how to correctly use lithium-ion batteries in terms of charging, and what to do if they become damaged, and also the correct disposal, because there's also an issue around waste fires and things like that. So that is the right thing to do. We're doing it in partnership, and hopefully you'll be seeing that coming out in the media in due course. That also brings us on to some of the next thing around fire casualties. We're seeing an increase in fire casualties, which you'll see in the last 12 months, there's 78. And what we're finding, we're going to less incidents, but the fires tend to be more severe. And we haven't got enough evidence or data to make a direct causational effect, but anecdotal evidence and some of the stuff we're seeing, because lithium-ion batteries fires tend to be very severe and very quickly developing, it appears there may be a link to that. But that's something that, because of the amount of data we have, it's going to take time to prove in evidence, but we do have a feeling that things are heading in that direction. So we're being proactive. We're starting to look at campaigns and how we can engage with people at the right age groups when they start using these devices to get that fire safety message out there, and working with partners to try and do it. But there is a lot of work to do in this area and to raise awareness. I still don't think the risks are very widely understood amongst the public, and I think there's a lot of work to do, especially with the proliferation of these devices. You know, it's just quite a tricky situation. So that's the main things around fire deaths, fire casualties, and primary and secondary fires. In terms of road traffic collisions and those seriously injured on roads, that is staying reasonably stable around the 5-year period. Obviously there was a dip during the COVID time, but now road traffic is back to where it normally is. Things are returning to pretty much normal as what we'd expect in those areas. Special service attendance, that is up over the 5 years, definitely. There was a slight dip between this year and last year, but we're still doing a lot more work, particularly around in working with colleagues in the ambulance service and affecting untreated properties. In terms of our diversity, we have seen an increase in the number LGBT plus applicants in on-call. However, this is not translated into appointments, so we need to do further work to understand the reasons behind that and try to identify any potential barriers that may be causing it. Work is still being done to analyse the data of the whole time recruitment to see what's happened there. We're having a bit of a time lag with getting some of this analysis done because of the amount of work that's going into getting the Sistel system over the line, which is using up our data teams, and they haven't got the capacity to do the work they would normally be doing for us. We've had an increase in those declaring disability and those who identify as Black, Asian or minority ethnic applying for roles with us, and we've seen a slight decrease in other areas. Workforce diversity has increased in all areas apart from those declaring other religion or belief. However, it's only seen a minor decrease of 0.2%. The national average for operational women is 82.2%, has increased by 1.1% to 8%, so very close to the national average. And the national average women for fire control is 77%, as 78%. We have 50% of women in professional services compared to the national average of 54%. So that is the main points I wanted to take you through in the report, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kindersley.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you very much for the report. Obviously, the Overview and Scrutiny Committee see this on a more regular basis as at each meeting. As the data is collated. So I think it would be helpful just to reflect on some of the conversations that we've had, particularly around lithium-ion batteries and particularly around special services attended, because a question that was raised was whether or not the fire service was being asked to step in where other services, and I think the finger was pointed fairly enthusiastically at the police, have decided to step out, in particular in relation to mental health related issues. So I wonder if John might want to just reflect on the conversations that took place at Overview and Scrutiny in relation to those two items.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, certainly we are seeing more of an impact of assisting other services, particularly the ambulance service. We're all aware of the strain they're under at the moment, but we do, our duty officers do quite a good job of scrutinising the requests for assistance and making sure that when we attend it is for appropriate reasons. In terms of the police and their change to how they respond to mental health situations, I mean, I think it's undoubtedly that we are seeing more people in mental health crisis, and as a public sector we are dealing with that more. I'm not sure we've seen a massive increase in the number of calls related to the police decision, but we are working very closely with them and other colleagues to monitor that and make sure we provide an appropriate response.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Picking up on the 6.2, developing and improving the ways in which we support the mental health and well-being of staff. So the psychological, I can never say that word, psychological well-being practitioner allows provision for low-level counselling within the service. So how would staff access this? Is it something, is the practitioner always there, or do they have to make appointments? Or, yeah, just wanted to understand how staff are able to access that? Is it an easy solution for them to go and see someone rather than going through occupational health, which is the normal process? And also, I've got another question after that. Thank you.
Yeah, the practitioners employed by us, and they work solely for us on certain days of the week and so many hours a week. And our staff can contact her if they have the need, and she is seeing a number of our people on a regular basis.
If I can, thank you, Chair. And picking up on the, where are we? 7.1. So it's the collaboration with other areas. So and you spoke about East of England Ambulance Service Trust. And I know that we've spoken about the welfare officers, the 2 community welfare officers that are funded by East. What I would like to know, I would like to sort of delve a little bit into that if possible, not necessarily here, but if you can find the data of how many incidents the 2 community welfare officers attended on falls, that would be really interesting to know. And also, if East were able to fund any more, would we have the capacity within the service to do that, or would we be looking at employing more to help out in this situation?
So we can definitely get that data return, and we are happy to provide that to everyone. In terms of expanding it further, I think the important thing will be to do a full review and debrief of it to see what benefit is providing to both parties before we look to expand it. But if East are willing to put more money into it, we could certainly look to expand it if it is providing the benefit to both parties. At the moment, it doesn't cost us, and we probably wouldn't have the funding to expand it ourselves further. It would require the support from East.
Thank you. I've got Councillors Slatter, then Smith.
Thank you. It was slightly on the same theme, my main question, and that is, again, homing in on section 7 and the collaboration with integrated care services and adult social care, which obviously is a concern of ours as county councillors. I was quite surprised to see you were involved in falls at all, but what I particularly wanted to ask was in trying to identify those particularly vulnerable, I would want to be sure that we are aware of the increasing number of elderly. Of course we are, but living at home, and in this county, many without English as their first language, or their English may well deteriorate with age and vulnerability and anxiety. And that can be a big issue. And I do wonder whether you are able to seek help and the help of the family, so that you know that there is a problem with language, and we don't expect individuals to respond necessarily as some with native English would respond. And I wondered whether we were involved in training for live-in carers as an associated issue in terms of evacuation, and having the right instructions and understanding with the person who is vulnerable. I'd be interested to know more about that collaboration with East of England about falls. How does that fit in with the rapid response system and so on?
Okay. So in terms of the most vulnerable and the language issue, certainly those that are most vulnerable will generally, with the most sort of pressing risks in terms of fire, will be dealt with by our specialist community safety officers, who will be able to spend more time with that person and do a very thorough assessment of their need, and be able to do what they can to communicate with them, whether that's through family members or getting support through partner agencies, etc. So they will be able to dedicate that time to making sure they get the service they need. In terms of, sorry, I forgot your second question.
Working with live-in carers.
Yes, live-in carers.
Agencies, and there is the Carer Academy coming up.
I can look into what we're doing around it. I don't have the answer to hand at the moment. I think one of the challenges there is the amount of turnover of people working in that sector. and how we'd maintain that. But I'll certainly look into what we're doing about it and get back to you.
I think we'll move on to Councillor Smith then, please.
Thank you, Chair. Basically, I was going to ask questions about 6.2, but that's also already been covered. Can I ask about 7.6? First of all, excellent report between yourself and Tamsin. Excellent report as ever. Thank you. And apologies if I've missed this, but can I ask about 7.6? Continue to work with partners from the Road and Water Safety Partnership. Excellent idea. We've recruited a dedicated community road safety officer. We're hosting, but somebody else is paying. Can I just ask, can that ever be pulled, or is that a full-time post? And does that post or person work with other authorities as well?
That person obviously is funded by the Officer of OPC, and we host them, and it's one of our officers. It is dependent on that funding. If the funding was pulled, we'd have to make a decision whether on a cost benefit basis we're saying we would take over the funding or look for other funding opportunities. But at the moment it is being funded, and it is for the Road Safety Partnership, and it is dedicated to this county.
I thought, yeah, it's basically there's already a road safety partnership. Work together.
Yeah, it's all working through the Road Safety Partnership.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Black, then Councillor Jamil.
Thanks, Chair. I'd just like to go to 10.1 and the attendance times for the first appliances to incidents. I think where this starts at the bottom of the page, it says 7.48 for the serious incidents in rural areas. I think that's urban, actually, isn't it? But what I would like to ask is, within those figures, is there a risk that the first appliance to a fire might be an appliance that can't deal with it? And so we might have an appliance that has not got the normal complement of people on it, and that they're not actually in a position to deal with the incident that they're confronted with. And I'm wondering if we're comparing the same thing with the same thing as we go back over these 5 years, as to whether we're getting an appliance with a full complement going there, and whether we've got any way of monitoring when the appliance that turns up in 7.5 minutes or 9 minutes or whatever it is has actually been enough to actually deal with the incident they're facing. Thanks.
Yeah, so when an appliance turns up in an incident, there'll be some occasions where they are able to deal with it, whether it be a crew of 3 or a crew of 5. But there'll always be certain occasions where, even if it is a crew of 5, they can't. If they're a more complex incident, or, for example, water rescue, that needs a number of resources to be there to do it safely. High rise, the same. Some more complex building fires will be the same. But there's plenty of instances where one appliance, with either a crew of 5 or a crew of 3, can resolve it on their own. And what we do know is the earlier you make an intervention with however many crew it is, the better the outcomes are for that incident. And that's one of the reasons we focus on attendance times, is because the sooner we can get a resource there and they can start doing something. Even a crew of 3 at a house fire, they can start putting water on the fire, they can start putting safe systems of work in place. And if there's someone from a window, they could put a ladder up and rescue them. On RTC, they can start giving first aid, they can stabilise and make the vehicle safer. And even in some circumstances, they could carry out a rescue. And so it very much depends on the incident and what the dynamic risk assessment incident commander will do to determine what they can do safely and what they can do to help the situation while waiting for further resources.
Thanks, John. Just to add, because part of the question was about how we record. We certainly report back to overview and scrutiny on a regular basis in terms of crews of 3 attending incidents. And we talk about what's happened, whether they've been successful or not. And we differentiate between crews of 3 and others in all of the core records that we have. So we know exactly how many people have attended an incident, and we know what the outcomes of those incidents were. But as John quite rightly points out, as a fire and rescue service, we can't always guarantee the same number of people on the appliance at any one time. So they are well versed, the crews, in how to make up and how to keep themselves safe between the time that they arrive and the time that the resources they need subsequently arrive at the incident.
Right.
Yeah, so we do have figures on any times that a crew of 3 arriving and can't deal with it has caused the problem, and what was done to resolve that problem, and how it compares.
Yes, we do, and we've reported that to the Fire Authority ever since we brought it in, which was about 18 months ago.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Jamil and Councillor Haythorne.
Thank you, Chair. On page 35, talk about fire casualties. The stats that you use for this, is this fire casualties emanating from when you arrive, or is this the statistics that's given to you by the hospital?
No, this is our statistics drawn from our instant recording system.
Sorry, I'm looking at, and most of these instances in Peterborough, do we see if there's a pattern? Would we look into that, or would it be something that it's a one-off, or is it consistent?
So we have regular meetings with our community safety team, and they really delve into these statistics. So they'll be looking for any trends like that, whether it's something in a particular area such as Peterborough, what the trends are there, what they can then do to help prevent that and work with that. So that detailed work does go on a regular basis.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Haythorne and Councillor Fitzgerald.
Yes, so 2 things. One is in 8.4, you talk about Storm Babette and there being a lot of sort of emergency calls at that time. Is that because Storm Babette was what was it about that? Is that because Storm Babette was particularly severe apparently in Suffolk, or is it because it was the first storm of the season? Is there anything that we can learn from that? And the second thing being a sort of observation that the more I hear about the lithium-ion batteries as a member of the public, you start thinking, it's this new thing and they're dangerous, even though they're in everyone's houses, so that's very worrying. But it feels as though there's two aspects of it. One is that the batteries can cause fires, and also that the fires behave in such a in an even more severe way. And so it feels that we all need to be getting our heads around that as alongside the evidence gathering, learning more and more about what's going on.
Yeah, so Storm Babette, that particularly hit the Suffolk, and our control did all the mobilising. They did a fantastic job of that under very challenging conditions. And it was very much because the storm caused a lot of damage. There was a lot of calls for assistance from members of the public, and therefore they were managing a lot of calls, juggling lots of resources to try and attend to those. Yeah, and the lithium-ion, as we've said, there is the issue of the fact that the fires are very intense, and that I think limited understanding about what caused it. I mean, an interesting case study where in the last couple of days we had a fire where it appears that the battery was dropped on the floor and then put by the back door with the intention of taking it out next morning, and then it caught fire during the night, just because it's being dropped and damaged. And it's something that people need to be really aware of, that if you do damage these in any way, get them out of the house.
Thank you. I think this is obviously a really sort of urgent issue that we need to think a lot more about. I've got Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted some clarification on a comment I heard about the right care, right person implementation. Did I hear you say there'd been a rise in attendances or calls as such regarding mental health, or did I mishear you?
I said there have been more calls on all public services due to mental health issues over the last few years, not particularly caused by the change in police policy. I say we've been monitoring the police policy. At the moment, it's not having an impact on us that it's causing a concern. But no, I think they were 2 different things.
I was just seeking clarity. I must have misheard, because if it had directly impacted that policy on other services, then that needs reporting back through other channels as well. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Thank you very much. That's been a really a thorough review, and Councillor Kindersley.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry to come back on this, but Councillor Slatter did highlight a point to me just now, which was, what do you do when the battery bursts into flame? Do you put it in a pot of water? And of course, that just makes the whole thing considerably worse. But I only know that because we've done a bit of work that I've done, as a member of the Fire Authority. And I know that we are doing, and I know there is a national scheme to promote, how to handle lithium-ion batteries, how to store them safely, how not to buy secondhand ones off the internet and so on. And I just wondered if John had any further sort of feedback on that in terms of, is that cutting through? Because actually, if I had a lithium-ion battery and it burst into flame, I'm pretty certain I wouldn't know what to do, and I'm in a quite privileged position. So I wonder if this is something perhaps that we need to take on a bit more.
Thank you very much. John, do you have a comment? I completely
Yeah, I
agree with
mean,
that.
we haven't done a massive amount of research, but a personal view and what we're seeing in anecdotal evidence, I'd say it isn't cutting through. I still think there's a lot of lack of understanding around the danger of lithium-ion, what to do, and all the points you raised. So there is more we need to do. We are doing work around it, but as I said, we're looking to do more work with the district councils to try and promote it even further. But yeah, and also the fire sector is working with government and the fire safety sector to bring in legislation around it as well, and to campaign for that. So we're doing as much as we can at the moment, but yeah, it is becoming a massive risk for us.
I mean, it's coming a massive risk for the district councils because people are lobbing the batteries into their rubbish, and obviously there are endless pictures of bin lorries on fire from the batteries. So given that, certainly I know South Cambridgeshire, and I imagine all of the district councils have a residents newsletter of some kind or other that tells you when your bin's going to be emptied. I wonder whether we could ask them to do, as it were, an emergency front page about this.
I think that's a really excellent suggestion, and it would be great if we could take that on board, please. And I think particularly the practical point, what do you do if it does, how do you store it safely, and what do you do if it does catch fire? Because like you say, the intuitive thing is to perhaps make it have contact with water, which is obviously wrong. I've got Councillor Slatter, then Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. The other area I was interested in particularly is public education, and obviously batteries are one of those. The water safety side of our service, with new housing developments, we usually create new areas of open water, and those may be in areas that aren't used to areas of open water. And I'm wondering if our work with schools is taking that into account, and whether it can even be targeted. So you go to the school where this has been created and show them how to use one of those orange things on a stick, rather than them having to work it out when there's somebody in the water. Sorry. And so I'm really interested in the work you're doing with schools and emergency services. I tried to follow up this safety zone phrase you used in your report. I couldn't find it on the website, but if that is indeed a collaboration with police and perhaps the library service in terms of education and all this collaboration, we really need to make sure we're making the most of the people and their knowledge, that we are not duplicating efforts and we're not leaving gaps. Thank you.
Yeah, we do have campaigns around water safety, and safety zone is part of that, and that is a collaboration with local authorities and other partners, where we bring children at different ages into a venue, and there's a number of lessons that they get taught around different safety aspects, and water safety is one of those. Yes, yeah, we take them. We've hosted on fire stations, in other community station areas as well.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Thank you. I have to go and have a nose at one of them.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Gardner.
Thank you very much, Chair. It was just really a thought, really. Going forward, we have the total number of fires, primary fires and secondary fires. I think now, because lithium-ion batteries are becoming far more prevalent, and we do seem to be getting quite a lot of fires and what have you, it would be quite interesting if we could have that information drawn out of these statistics so that we can see going forward how much of a problem it is across the area. And it'd be quite useful with some of these to actually state what the actual number of fires are within each district. I don't know whether that's possible, because that might lead us to think, well, there's a particular issue there or not. So I agree with everything that Councillor Kindersley has said. We do need to educate people on how to keep and store lithium-ion batteries, but I think it would be useful going forward if we could actually see how many times this authority has been called out to that type of incident, and and how serious that incident has been, whether somebody has been killed or not. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you indeed. And of course, we're in a national context, which will provide a rich picture as well. Chris.
Yeah, I think that's important, as an important point to make. This is an emerging risk, lithium batteries. It's something that is not just being experienced in Cambridgeshire, it is across the piece, and it's not just e-scooters. It's lithium batteries. The lithium batteries are used in all sorts of devices. I've got one in this, which is a mobile phone. And in the past, we've had fires in mobile phones because of the charging devices. So we've actually had fires in smoke detectors that have lithium batteries, believe it or not. So it's an emerging problem because lithium batteries are being used more and more. And something that we should bear in mind, that lithium batteries, when they are involved in a fire, it's an explosive issue. So for example, the fire that happened only a couple of days ago, where luckily, as John mentioned, the people got out, probably because they had 2 working smoke detectors. That was because the battery, we think, because the battery had been dropped and the person was going to throw it out the following day. But between the time it was dropped and the time it was going to be thrown away, it then did catch light, but explosively. So when you see the pictures of the damage that's done, you can see why it then became very difficult for people to then evacuate from the building. It was on the ground floor, which was a piece of luck. So I totally agree with you. It's something that we are on top of, and we are publicising it as a service. It's being looked at by the National Fire Chiefs Council, and there is no doubt that it will become more. It will be raised in the conscience of the public over time, but it's a difficult one to try and get people's heads around, because actually the advice we need to give is quite complicated. Because what we're not saying is don't have lithium batteries. What we're saying is have ones that are, bought from a reputable place, charged properly, not kept on the means of escape, serviced regularly, replaced when they should be. So there's a whole range of things that need to happen for people to keep themselves safe. So that's something that we need to work on over time.
Thank you very much. I think that's been a really interesting and sort of full debate about this paper. We're asked to note the contents. Is everyone happy to do that? Thank you. Next item is the financial position. Can I ask Matthew, please, to introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. Just before I start, in terms of the tackling, Councillor Kindersley, please don't try and tackle a lithium-ion battery explosion. Just get out and call us. I think that's the advice that we'll be giving. Please let us deal with it and get yourself safe as soon as you possibly can. But In terms of the paper in front of you, the finance team led by Ursula have done a fantastic job again. We published our draft accounts by the deadline on the 31st of May on time, which again, they've done a great job. In terms of the position last year, we ended up slightly overspent at £30,000. But I would say the financial management across the service, and it doesn't come just from finance, it comes from across the service, has been exceptional. I look at all sort of managerial colleagues, and they really have done a really great job in terms of not just managing, but understanding how they use their resources. So I think that's the first point. And one factor in that, and you'll see it's contained within the report, is a figure around carry forwards. Now, historically, we've always had high carry forwards. This year, the actual carry forward figure is set at an amount of £315,000. Now, that's obviously less than 1% of the budget. So that's exceptional. That is for real projects that have started that they need to carry over into next year. So you know, they've again, our budget holders and budget managers have done a great job. You can see the detail as to what those carry forwards have been asked for. In terms of other things, our reserves increased slightly, and that relates to the additional funding that we got from business rates that we're using to fund St Neots upgrade. That is still ongoing. We're still subject to planning on that, so it's been quite a drawn out process. Members will be aware we used a large part of our property development reserve to fund the new training centre, which is now obviously now done. We are at a position, it says in 7.3 around Huntingdon. Huntingdon site should, I say should, I haven't heard yet, but should complete today. So we will get some money back into these reserves, all being well by the end of today, or probably not today, but tomorrow we'll get the money. In terms of capital programme, no issues there. We've used some of the underspend to fund the capital programme, so we don't have to borrow again, which again hopefully is prudent financial management, because as you will all be aware, borrowing rates have gone up. So as much as we can, we are avoiding borrowing at the moment. There's been a lot of investment over the last year in terms of our vehicles, particularly in terms of catching up on offers of vehicles, which we weren't able to buy because of supply chain issues over a significant period of time. So all in all, Ursula and the team have done a really great job, but it's a service-wide recognition, hopefully, for everybody. And yes, we're in a good place. So hopefully, open to any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Matthew? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. With the Huntingdon site, what is the income going to be used for?
So what we do initially is we'll put it back into the reserve, and then we'll actually work out the capital programme where it's invested for the future. Generally, we try to invest money that comes in through our estate back into our estate. So, but again, there'll be a plan that sets that out as we move forward.
Any other questions? Thank you. We're asked to note the revenue and capital budget outturn position, approve the request for carry forwards, and note the contents of the annual Treasury Management Report. Is that agreed? Thank you very much. Another one for you, Matthew, the draft pay policy.
Thank you. Yeah, this is clearly this is an annual requirement that we set out effectively how we pay our people and the respective benefits that we pay to all of our people across the service. We've been doing this for obviously a number of years now. The draft pay policy that's in front of you does not reflect pay awards that are to be determined, clearly. So it is now, but it will need some of those figures updating once we know what the final pay awards are. We do now know the grey book, but we don't know what the green book, our green book people are going to receive. So there's still some, but there's some good news stories in here in terms of what we call we do a comparison, a pay multiplier that compares the top earning individual in the organisation to the to the lowest, and that has come down again. So that's good. So that gap is getting smaller. But other than that, everything else is pretty much standard. No significant changes from one year to the next. So I don't think there's anything much more I can say on that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I agree with the first sentence in 3.1. This has come under the spotlight in recent years. Bearing that in mind, can I ask who actually prepares this? And also, how do we rate with other services for what we pay to the top staff? Like, are we the top or the bottom?
We're neither top nor bottom.
So whereabouts are we?
We'd be in the middle. I mean, if you look at recent vacancies in terms of senior level, then we are certainly at and around that level that is competing in the market.
So the fact that it's come in the spotlight before, it won't, we are in line with everybody else.
Absolutely. We are not at the in the upper echelons like we perhaps were some years ago, Councillor Smith.
Right, that's just where I was going. And who actually prepares this?
So Deb prepares this statement. Deb Thompson prepares this statement for us on an annual basis, and to ensure that it's still compliant with the legislation. And then obviously we make sure that the figures are taken from payroll, so they're all up to date. Okay.
Thanks, Councillor. Just for a bit of reassurance, when I took on the role as Chief Fire Officer in 2016, the pay for the chief's role was reduced by £30,000 a year, and that brought us back into line. It was that brought us back into line with other services, and since that point in time, the increases in pay have been no more than the Greybook staff, firefighters, and no more than the rate of inflation, and at times zero, because obviously we've been through the austerity period.
Thank you. If I can just come back briefly, this is why you've been a very good in your post. Very, very good. I did have to ask because of how it's been sort of brought up before. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Haythorne.
Yes, so I have read this. I'll try to. Can I ask what? So a lot of these rates of pay are set at national level. Yeah, where is there that? Yeah, where is the flexibility? Where do we sit? What roles are not sort of at national level, and how do we differ from the national approach?
So everybody at a from a uniform perspective, below, at area commander and below, are nationally agreed. Gold Book terms, which is effectively the principal officer team, are locally agreed, but with an eye on the Gold Book terms and conditions. In terms of Green Book, there is some more flexibility. So Green Book, we have what we call APT&C members of staff, and that's up to a senior officer 2 level, which is a relatively mid-manager level. Then everything above that is largely locally determined, but those have been largely benchmarked against the county council in the past to ensure that we stay competitive. And we do benchmark particular jobs if we're having problems to ensure that we are still competing in the market, because part of our challenge for certain perhaps more technical fields, particularly around IT and such, is we can struggle to recruit those people because we're not paying the right amounts of money. Okay.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much. We're being asked to approve the draft. This is an annual pay policy statement for publication. Is everyone happy to do that? Thank you very much. So the next item is the recommendation for appointment of a new Chief Fire Officer. And I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave the room, Matthew. So thank you very much. So let me introduce this item. as a member of the appointments panel. There was a robust and really quite broad approach to recruiting for this role. And it has been discussed and raised at a previous Fire Authority meeting. It involved a search. We found several appointable candidates, and there was a robust process involving engagement with staff, with the senior team, and with the appointments committee. So the appointments panel included myself, Councillor Bywater, Kindersley, Jamil, and we're also ably assisted by Stephen Moyer, the Chief Executive of the County Council. We unanimously recommended Matthew Warren for this role. He proved himself to us to be the outstanding candidate in a strong field. And we would like today to put that to the Fire Authority to approve that recommended appointment and appoint Matthew today. I would add that I've had comments from Kevin Reynolds and Simon Bywater, who are not here today, who are 100% supportive, as is Doug Dew, who's not able to attend today. Do I have questions or comments? Sebastian.
Thank you. If you haven't moved the recommendation, I will propose it. But before I do want to pay tribute to all of the people who were involved in the process, which was a very lengthy and detailed process, of which the appointments committee, of course, only came in at the end, although it was a full day activity, as it were. But I think that the panel certainly was impressed by the way that Christine Doody particularly had managed the whole process. And I think it would be really helpful to note our thanks to her as the Assistant Director of People, and to all of the colleagues who participated in the process, because there were panels of various colleagues drawn from across the service who conducted interviews. And, you know, it was a fascinating process, speaking from a personal perspective, and I'm confident that we are making a recommendation for the right person. So all that being said, I would like to move the recommendation.
Thank you very much, and I would also very much support the for the record to say thank you very much, and to recognise the quality of the work that has gone into the whole process, which was very extensive. Thank you. We have a proposal. Are there any other comments that anyone would like to make, or questions? Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Can I just ask, basically, yeah, I've got no problems, but can I ask, obviously Matthew's got a sort of, you know, he's got a role now. What would happen to the post that he's got, and when would all this take place? That's obviously going to be re-advertised or advertised, I take it. Or what's the process?
Right, so the process is that he would start the new role on the 1st of July. And he then has plans for how to look at the senior team and how to manage the transition. But in a way, I mean, it's a good question for next steps, but strictly speaking, we're looking at.
Oh yeah, yeah, I'm just asking.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Observations? Thank you. We have a proposal. I'd like to second that proposal. And do we have the support for that? Is it, would we all like to show our support? Yes, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. That's really excellent news. And let's get Matthew back.
No, I mean, his ears might burn. Now the vote's over, I just wanted to make comment if I could. I didn't take part in the process because I had very much was hoping that Matthew would take on the role as chief. Certainly, Matthew and I have worked very closely together since 2007. We've been on a very long journey, and just reflecting on that time, what I would say is, despite the adversity that we face as an organisation, the many millions of pounds we've had to trim from our budgets, we've taken an organisation forward. We've certainly improved the productivity of our organisation, and we are nationally recognised for the culture that we have in the service. Two difficult things to balance, I would say, and that's all because of the approach that we've taken. And I did say at the outset of this, I think members, it would be advised to focus very much on the sort of culture that they would like to see in the service and how to embed that and keep it moving forwards. And, you know, he's sitting in the room, but I have to say, I'm very, very pleased to see that Matthew will take it on, because I think that you will get more of the same, which is around improvement, seeing the culture continue to grow. And despite the difficulties we face, I think the whole organisation will pull together. I've spent some time out in the organisation since the announcement that I'll be leaving. I've had nothing, no negativity whatsoever. So Matthew starts on a very strong footing. People know that he knows the organisation inside out. They know that he's put a huge amount of effort in to gaining his operational qualifications on top of what he does in his support role. So he has gained the respect of the people that he'll be working for and their trust. And I think that will go a long way to seeing the service, not seeing any dip, just continuing to move forward and onwards and upwards. So, you know, I'm very pleased that the decision's been made as it has, and I thank you, members. And yeah, that's all I had to say.
Thank you very much. And Matthew, in case you were wondering, you have unanimous support from this, and you are now appointed. And thank you very much indeed. Thank you. You don't have to say anything at this point in time.
If I can just say, just if you'll indulge me for 1 second, I just thank you to certainly the panel. The process was tough. I found it, as many of you will know, I'm not particularly good at talking about myself, and I found that quite a challenge. But thank you so much. I am really excited. I'm grateful. I think we can do great things. We've got a great team, a really great team of people. The best, I would suggest. And we are in a good state to put ourselves right at the very top when it comes to fire and rescue services. And I will work my hardest to ensure that we make progress along that way. One final thing, just I don't want to say too much, Chris. We've been together since 2009. 2007, but 2009 in terms of me being appointed onto the senior leadership team. I think we've done some really great things, and he has not only been a colleague, but he's also counted him as a really close friend as well. So I thank you for everything you've done for me personally, and I wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Indeed. So, on with the agenda. Appointments to committees and outside organisations. Tamara, I believe you're going to introduce this report. No, I think this is about approving the appointments as set out in the report. And if
everybody's happy as they are, if anyone has any amendments or anything they wanted to raise.
Well, I would hope that the amendments would have been raised by now, but now is the last chance. Otherwise, we're happy with it. Thank you. Yes. Yes, indeed. Thank you very much indeed. And the next item is that we appoint chairs and vice chairs of our two main committees. And now we go to the appointment of chair and Policy and Resources Committee. Do I have nominations for chair, please? I would like to propose Sebastian. Do I have any other?
Second that, Chair.
Second that, thank you. Any other nominations for Chair of Policy and Resources? Thank you very much. Councillor Kindersley is confirmed as Chair of Policy and Resources. And now to the appointment of Vice Chair of Policy and Resources. Nominations for Vice Chair?
Councillor Jamil.
Thank you very much. I second that. Are there any other nominations for Vice Chair? Thank you very much, Councillor Jamil. You are, I seconded. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Jamil. You are Vice Chair of Policy and Resources for the year. And now to the Chair of Overview and Scrutiny. Do I have nominations for Chair? Thank you.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Ray.
Second, Councillor Kindersley. Any other nominations for Chair of Overview and Scrutiny? No, thank you very much, Councillor Ray, confirmed as Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. And now Vice Chair of Overview and Scrutiny.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Taylor.
Thank you very much. I'd like to second that. Are there any other nominations? No, thank you very much, Councillor Taylor. You're confirmed as Vice Chair of Overview and Scrutiny. We just then have, for noting, the draft minutes of Policy and Resources Committee, Overview and Scrutiny Committee for us to look at and note. And I assume there's no comments or points to make about them. Thank you very much. That concludes the meeting for today. The next scheduled meeting will take place on the 19th of December. Thank you very much, everyone.